Today's episode of the Inside EVs podcast is brought to you by E-Range EV Tyre. E-Range EV tyres are specifically engineered for electric vehicles. Using an advanced manufacturing process called liquid phase mixing, E-Range EV's EcoPoint 3 technology creates a tyre with lower rolling resistance and longer range, while offering low levels of wear and high grip. All this while staying affordable. Go to erangetires.com. That's ERANGE tires.com to find your EV's next set of tyres.
Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for November the 4th, 2022. This is episode number 135. Today's episode is brought to you by E-Range EV Tires. And on today's show, we'll be talking about how 3 electric pickup trucks on sale now stack up against each other, auto charge at EVgo stations, which simplifies the fast charging experience, and Mercedes EQE sedan pricing has just been released. I'm Dominic Yoni, Inside EV's forum moderator and Inside EV's editor. Joining us today is a detail-oriented Tom Moloughney, Inside EV's editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have megastar Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily podcast, which is available on all the best podcast platforms. And Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic, practically palatial halls of Autospec Studios, where he produces high-voltage videos for a growing number of YouTube channels. And finally, we have a special guest with us for a little while at least. He is Jonathan Levy, Chief Commercial Officer of EVgo Fast Charging. Hopefully we can get his camera to come up for us. We're having a few technical difficulties this morning. But welcome, everybody.
Good morning. Dom, can I start with an apology? What a way to start. Yeah. As you know, I'm the one that goes into the back end of this system and schedules it on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. Now, it's 1:30 in the afternoon here. It's the same time for you guys. Our clocks went back daylight savings last Sunday. Yours do this weekend. Right. So we're on a 4. So for everyone in the comments going, whoa, they started an hour early. It's my fault. Hands up. I screwed up. So I scheduled it for the usual time, 2:30 UK, British summertime. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So,
Unfortunately, it looks like Jonathan doesn't have a great connection here today. So
right.
We're going to try to get this in.
Right. Do we have audio there at all, Jonathan? We don't have video.
There we go. Now we'll just try Jonathan maybe one more time, see if he can connect up.
Okay. And so, because we want to start this thing off with Jonathan, if we can, and talk about Auto Charge Plus, actually. And but I guess while we're waiting for that. Oh, okay, you're up there now. Can you hear us, Jonathan? I believe it is in a hotel and dealing with the vagaries of hotel Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So I would say that's not going to happen.
Right. So
sorry about that, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you
now
there.
Now we can.
We could. We heard that.
It's very laggy.
We heard that one question. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can find another place in the hotel, like in the lobby, maybe that has better Wi-Fi. But
it feels like there's a bit of a lag.
Yeah.
This is
There's a lot of lag. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably go on to the Mercedes EQE story right now, and then I don't know. We'll try to figure out something.
Yeah, if it doesn't work out today, we'll try to get Jonathan back. If it doesn't work out today, we'll have him on one of the upcoming shows again, because we do want to talk about EVgo and Auto Charge and kind of get a state of the company for what's going on at EVgo. We think our followers are interested in that, so
right.
We'll try to get it back today. But if we can't, we'll do this again soon.
Okay, I was going to say your mic's a little quiet there, but then it just started to pick up at the very end.
My mic.
Yeah, they're good there. So. So let's touch on a couple news stories real quick, and we'll get back to maybe to Jonathan or what we've been driving this week in our electric truck showdown. So first, prices for the Mercedes EQE sedan have been announced for the US. So if you want a primo luxury sedan, you can get into one with a 3-pointed star for $76,500. And this is, of course, a lot of money for a car, but it's also sort of a bargain. The Mercedes EQS sedan, which is just a bit bigger but arguably also uglier, starts at $102,310. So that's a saving of over $26,000. So Kyle, EQE sounds like a deal when you compare it to the EQS, but what about other cars? Is this still a decent value outside the Mercedes ecosphere?
Well, EQS has a totally different character than EQE, in my opinion. EQS is much more luxurious. When you start getting into the S-Class level of Mercedes, they are refined in many ways. There are some things, of course, that I don't like about EQS, one of them being styling, but I don't think EQE fixes that. I think EQE is uglier after spending some time with both of them. So, yeah, not my kind of style car, but I really loved the EQE. The price is quite high. When we start thinking about E-Class combustion, you can get a nice one for high 60s. You're in the 70s is getting a pretty optioned up one. Here you're getting the battery electric one with probably less equipment for similar costs. So I actually thought EQS was priced more competitively with the S-Class, undercutting it a little bit. And I guess the price for EQE seems, I guess, as expected. That's what we thought it was going to be. It's a great driving car, though. Really cool. Shorter wheelbase, 10 degrees of rear steer, still tons of fun.
Right. What features do you get on the EQS that you don't get on the EQE?
Well, it's not necessarily about feature specific stuff. It's about ride quality, fit and finish, feel, material usage. It's a lot of the intangibles. Also, EQS is a hatchback where EQE is a traditional sedan. Big difference there from a load standpoint. I honestly think the sedans are the ones not to go for, and to go for the SUVs. EQS SUV, EQE SUV, both, in my opinion, outshine the sedan versions.
Right. I think we had EQS SUV pricing, was it just last week or something? And it wasn't much more than the sedan. It's like a couple grand. Like, no, at these prices, it's the same. There's no.
Yeah, no one's going to be like, oh, I can't spend the extra $2,000 to get the SUV once you're up at this level.
Right. Exactly. Tom, do you have any thoughts about this?
So, it is a little bit higher price than what I had hoped. The E-Class, I think, starts, as Kyle said, you can get one, relatively optioned from the high 50s, low 60s, or mid 60s. And it starts, I think, at 53 or 54,000. But then I looked at the E-Class, the AMG E53, I guess, and that price is exactly the same, or within a couple $100 of the starting price of the EQE. And performance-wise, they're close. Now, maybe at higher speeds, the AMG the 53 might win, but 0 to 60, I think they're exactly the same. So I could see Mercedes might be angling to say, look, you're getting AMG performance from the base EQE, and that's why we have it priced that way. And
but it's not the case. Let me tell you this: I've driven the EQE 350 rear-wheel drive and 4MATIC. They are so slow. It's actually one of the few cars that I would recommend optioning the higher power output in. Also spent time in the 53 AMGs. Not spicy. They should not put an AMG badge on that car. That's not what it is. I don't know why. I don't know why the 0 to 60 would be so close. The EQE does get off the line very quickly, but from anything above 30 miles an hour, it's really a dog. It doesn't want to move.
Really? Okay. Well, I haven't driven it, so that's better to have that. I looked at the Mercedes listed 0 to 60. I think was 4.4 for the E53 and 4.5 for the EQE. So I looked at that as a push and said, I'm sure at higher speeds, but you're saying at even 30, 40 miles an hour, you could feel a big difference. And I trust you on that because you're the expert on that, and I haven't driven it. So that's what I was looking at and saying, well, maybe that's why they put these prices aligned, with that. So, we've been, for the last 10 years where we've had electric vehicles, the electric equivalent to a comparable gas car has always been much more expensive. Now, we've made the argument that with incentives and fueling and maintenance over time, the vehicles will cost less. And that's a true argument. But people can't grab that. They can't put their hands around that, no matter how many times you tell people, look at the total cost of ownership. They just don't. They look at MSRP. They say that car's $10,000 more than this car. I don't have an extra $10,000 to spend. Fleet managers are great at doing that. They look at the total cost of ownership and they'll roll the numbers and say, geez, this EQE after 8 years, I'm above water $8,000. But the average buyer isn't going to be able to do that. We need to get closer to having cost parity when we have very equivalent vehicles on the same showroom floor. We have to try to get that those prices closer, and there is a big gap with the E-Class, and I think that's going to hurt sales.
Right. It's just speaking about the upper options. So the EQE 350 Plus with rear-wheel drive, that's the $76,050 car. 3,000 more gives you 4MATIC, gives you all-wheel drive, dual motor for $79,050. And then if you want the spiciest one that we have here is the EQE 500 4MATIC, $89,150, and that gives you the 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, which, like as you're saying, is not like it's fast, it's plenty quick, but it's not like crazy, kind of quick, right? But okay. So anything else we want to say about that? We can move along. All right. So this seems like an odd vehicle to talk about, but since it just debuted in China. But the ZeekR 009 is the second model from the Geely brand. The first was the ZeekR 001, which is a low roof crossover, and also on the Geely SEA platform. It's expected to go on sale in Europe next year. So it makes sense if the 009 joins it in Europe, because like a showroom with a single model might seem kind of like lacking, I guess. So besides Europe, ZeekR CEO, who is also the president of Geely, isn't shy about saying how the automaker was created with the aim of meeting standards in Europe and the United States from the outset. So even still, the 009 or 009, maybe we should call it 009, might be an odd vehicle for Europe. It's a luxury minivan with lots of range and plenty quick acceleration. As you can see from the pics, the exterior styling may be challenging for some, but the interior is like roomy and lots of creature comforts. So just some real quick numbers. 2 available battery sizes, 116 kilowatt hours and 140 kilowatt hours, giving you significantly large batteries. So on the Chinese cycle, that's 436 miles and 510 miles altogether. It's got to be, that's going to be at least 350 miles for the small battery with 116 kilowatt hours. So dual motor all-wheel drive with 400 kilowatts or 536 horsepower and 505 pound-feet of torque in a minivan. So 0 to 60 is like 4.5 seconds. There you go. Like you could get the top-notch EQE, giving you the 4.5 seconds 0 to 60, or you could get a minivan. So prices in China start at 499,000 won, I guess, which is like $68,450 for the base version, and 588,000 won, or $80,660 for the for the bigger battery. And delivery is going to start 2023. That's a great shot there. You can kind of get a look at see of the just the interior, how that's kind of laid out. It just looks nice. It's got the armrest for all your passengers. The very rear seats, the third row, they also tilt back, which is kind of neat. So Martin, this might be a little bit posh for like our budgets, like mine and yours, but how do you suppose a luxury minivan with tons of range might go over in Europe?
Yeah, we don't use the phrase minivan. We'd say people carrier. Minivan isn't really a thing here, but yeah, if you've got hotels, shuttles, airport runs, and then families who need to shuttle around, between 3-4 kids and stuff like that, or families. Really interesting battery in this from CATL, their Kirin battery, which I believe is the cell-to-pack technology and the structural battery pack.
Right.
There's some innovations around this vehicle. I believe that it's they've made a big point. I think they saw that the all the press that Tesla gets. So they've pointed out that this is actually the world's biggest single cast rear end of a vehicle.
Really?
Because I think Tesla get all their attention with the Idra gigapress, but
Sure.
but Zeekr's is bigger. So a little game of my one's bigger than your one there. Whether that gets any traction, I doubt it will. And what I think is more interesting is this is about ferrying around people in absolute luxury and comfort. I thought it was 6 captain's chairs, but the 2 rear ones probably aren't big enough for that. But yeah, it's got all the technology inside. It's got speakers and microphones built in to each of the seats so that somebody at the very back of the vehicle can talk to the driver and not have to shout or raise their voice. Everyone's got their own seat controls. Everyone's got tables and screens to look at. So super luxurious, not super luxurious price. And I think you're being a bit optimistic, if I'm honest, on the efficiency. And I think if you take a battery pack of the big one, 140 kilowatt hour,
It's
and
huge.
people are saying, obviously the Chinese cycle, it's a 600-mile EV. I don't think this is going to get. So if it's 100 and do the maths. If it's 150 and it's not, and they want 600 miles, this is not a 4 miles per kilowatt hour vehicle.
No.
In a million years. When you look at the front of it, it's a tank driving through the air. If this gets 2.5 to 3 kilowatt hours, miles per kilowatt hour, you'll be really lucky. And so, yeah, if you're buying this to do those long runs, it has to be the big battery, which is the latest greatest CATL technology. And
right.
you may get 350 miles maybe out of the big battery. It's really interesting. And launching the ZeekR 001 launches in the UK next year. That was yesterday's news, it was Tuesday's news on a call with journalists on a roundtable call. ZeekR confirmed that the 001 launches in the UK next year. 001 is it's not a Model Y. It's Model Y price parity. At least in China it is, and it's not an SUV. It's more like a fastback or estatey kind of shape.
Right.
I call
it a low roof crossover. I'm not sure if that's like a. I don't know if anyone else calls it that, but that's what I call it.
Yeah, I'd say fastback kind of. But I think it looked very, very cool. And styling wise, it is really good on their new platform, which will be used by Volvos and Polestars. Designed, by the way, the ZeekR designed in Sweden with the Swedish design house, which is why I'm surprised it looks like the tank that it is. So yeah, Chinese company, but a Swedish design house. So I thought that perhaps it wouldn't look like that. Look, if it's for the Chinese market, it's why BMW makes stretched versions of their cars just for the Chinese market. So it's different tastes according to where you're going to sell them.
That big grill. It reminds me of the Chinese market like 10 years ago. I don't know that I've seen that much of like big kind of garish grill kind of thing, that much recently. The designs have really come along. This one actually I believe it's designed by an ex-Audi designer. I forget his name, but Tom
looks like
has
there's about
thoughts.
4 inches of clearance. Look how low that is.
I know.
That's it looks like, to me, my first impressions was it looked like a Ford Flex and a Chrysler Pacific that had a baby.
Right.
And I love the comments, over here. We have some people saying somebody finally put wheels on a loaf of bread. There was another one. It's so ugly that it's beautiful. So, it's an interesting vehicle. I think Martin summed up a lot of good thoughts there. It's interesting. I'd be curious to see, how well that would do outside of China. I don't think it would do particularly well in the US, even though we like big vehicles like that. It's kind of polarizing the looks.
If ZeekR comes to Europe, like sure with the 001, and they're planning on coming to the US eventually, they need more than one vehicle, don't they? I don't know if this would have to be it. Maybe they have something else, on the coming up.
Yeah, it's from a real standing start, isn't it? If you're asking people to take a punt on the 001 when there's no, nothing else around or no network and all those kind of things. So yeah, but they sell pretty well in China.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on. I don't know if you want to say anything about this, Kyle. Do you want to chime in on the ZeekR 009? Okay.
I like it personally. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think we
Yeah.
need to get you guys doing a range test to figure out what the actual range, because I think it would do more than 350.
No, there's so many
battery.
more interesting things we can do with it than a range test.
Right.
We think about all of the weird Chinese buttons. We got to figure out what they do.
Man, there's a lot of buttons in that thing.
I love every bit of it.
Right on. That's and on the screen now we have the ZeekR 001 or 001, which is, like I said, I don't know. How would you call that, Kyle?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure it really matters how you classify it. It looks pretty cool
Right.
in my opinion.
But you want to describe it to somebody? You're going to call it like
Ooh,
not
not
really
sure.
a wagon or
Chinese Macan.
Yeah, frog. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally like it. It's a little take on the what's that other company, Lincoln Co., which is
Yeah,
also
little
owned by
Lincoln
Gilly.
Coast. It's got a little. What's the Ford Puma thing you got over there, Martin? You know
Yeah.
this? Yeah, it's got a lot of that in there.
Right. All right. So, let's see. In other news, SEMA has been happening all week, and one of the electric vehicles on display there has been the Dodge Charger Daytona SRT concept. We've seen this Charger before, of course, and now we learned that it will come in a number of different power levels. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I just wanted to bring it up because it was kind of interesting. So Dodge says it will take a stair-step approach to its electrified performance, and it's offering 9 possible power outputs for this one car. 3 basic trims are a 400-volt system with 456 horsepower. Next one up is 590 horsepower. And then there's an 800-volt SRT Banshee powertrain package with still secret power levels. It's got to be like a megawatt, right? You have to have over 1,000 horsepower at this point, I think, if you want to make a big splash. And 800 volts, yeah, this should be pretty interesting. So to unlock higher performance within each of those basic trims, you get either E-Stage 1 or E-Stage 2 upgrades, which you literally unlock with a crystal key that plugs into the dash. So, Tom, this sounds like a little overly complicated. Do you think these different power levels and kind of contrived ways of unlocking more performance will still appeal to buyers in 2022?
And I think Dodge is trying too hard. It's
Okay.
not it shouldn't be that complicated. It's not needed. I know they want to excite their fan base and
Right.
go all in on the performance, and they see all these other vehicles out there that are kind of mundane vehicles have crazy performance. So they're trying to, I guess, do other things other than the performance with the loud noise and crystal keys, and it just seems a little gimmicky to me. I think it looks cool, and I can't wait to get behind the wheel of one of these. But
Right.
to me, just overall, it seems like Dodge is trying too hard to make electric. They're almost like they're concerned that their followers won't like electric cars, so they have to reinvent the electric vehicle and make it cool. Because it's already not cool. So we'll see. I mean, a lot the stuff you get out of SEMA here. We'll see how much this is going to translate, into production. But I mean, I like a lot of the things they're doing. I think this thing looks really cool.
Right.
But all the trimmings that they're putting around it so far, it seems like they're not convinced that their followers will want electric vehicles. So they have to do all this other stuff to make electric cool.
Right.
Well,
It sounds
let's be honest. If there's ever a group of people that wouldn't want to drive electric, wouldn't it be the Hellcat group of people, Tom?
I don't think so. I think it would be the pickup truck people.
No, I think actually pickup truck people are torque lovers, and you're doing this experiment, which is cool. But I really think this is going to be the hardest group of people to convince that electric's better. My opinion is that. This is just a prediction. I think Dodge going electric with this platform will lose 80% of their customers going forwards because of this.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone wants V8s, roasting tires, and a little bit of rowdiness. They're trying to bring that in with electric, but
Right.
it's just not. I think it loses the spirit of the car.
Okay. It has the Fratzonic exhaust system, sound system, whatever that is, and which I believe they were actually working on to improve that. We heard some of it during the launch, and I don't know if it was. I don't know. I didn't hear anybody say that it sounded great. So anyway, they're still developing that a bit. But It's true. I was talking to a guy yesterday, like a normal guy, mechanic, and he just a good old boy down here, and he had the chance recently to drive some Teslas, and he really enjoyed them. But he's still the sound. He still misses that sound, which I guess is it's meaningful to people, so we can't just dismiss that. But
so do I. I love motorsport, and World Rallycross has gone fully electric this year, and there's something different about it. And we should be able to go racing and not burn stuff, but there is something about that close contact racing over just a few minutes and a few laps between the tarmac and the dirt and the cars that are bonkers and crazy. I mean, look, it's been 2 or 3 years since the last Ken Block Hoonatron video, and the new one came out, and it's brilliant and obviously impressive and a piece of art as well when you look at how they've shot it and edited that.
Right.
But is it the same as the previous 10? Probably not. And I'm the biggest EV fan you'll find. So there's something visceral about cars like this that I totally understand. Like, this is why Ferrari and Lamborghini should all be the last ones to electrify, because they serve a certain purpose for a very small handful of people, and we shouldn't beat them over the head to tell them that they have to go electric, because if you sell 10 million electric vehicles and 1,000 of these, I don't know how many they sell of the Dodge Charger. It's not a car we have, but they sell a handful of these. I mean, whatever. You're going to have some happy people driving them around. It wouldn't be for me, but I don't know. I think I don't want to get too preachy with electric vehicles. I don't think.
Right.
There's probably room to carry on burning stuff like people still ride horses.
Sure. Yeah. So okay, let's just move on to something. I don't know if we want to say anything more about. We're good with this. Okay. So a couple little things, and we'll get to what we've been driving. Tesla Cybertruck mass production is said to start at the end of 2023. So Martin, no, you don't have Tom has the reservation. So Tom, 2023, the end of the next year, this time next year, like a year from now, we're told that your Cybertruck might be rolling off the line.
No, not mine. I didn't reserve one really early. I think I reserved like a month after they opened reservations. So I'm like 200,000 or however many they had early on. So yeah, I don't have one of the super early Cybertruck reservations. And who knows what their production is going to be. I am, I hope I'm wrong, but I am predicting if Model 3 was production hell, I know Tesla's more mature now, but working with this steel and having a type of a vehicle that, as quite honestly, has never been built before, I think they're going to have even more production problems with Cybertruck. I don't think they're going to be rolling those out in high numbers until, maybe the end of 2024. Right. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but it's there's a reason why they're already 2 years behind, and it's not. This was supposed to start production the end of 2021, and now we're looking at the end of 2023. So let's see. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope they hit the ground running, and they're cranking out tens of thousands of them within a couple of months. I mean, that would be awesome. But right. We've seen this time and time again with all the brands, and even with Tesla. Virtually every vehicle that they've launched, they've had difficulty in the beginning. Now, why was the least? Because it was their latest vehicle, but it still had a lot of issue. Early on, there were a lot of quality control issue. So let's see.
I think pricing for me,
I'm
pricing is
about it.
The story here is pricing.
We don't know what the pricing is now.
They revealed pricing when they launched the vehicle, and there is no way this starts at $40,000. And partly it's because the world has changed on Tesla. Yeah. I mean, look, the world changed in the last 6 months because Mr. Tesla bought Twitter, and then advertising stopped, and there's a global recession coming. So, that caught people unawares, and the tech collapse, which is kind of about to come. But in terms of inflation, it's happening globally. In terms of interest rates, in terms of car finance, I was in a dealer's last weekend. Actually, I popped into MG to see my my buddies in MG, and my local one here in Dorset. And because this time last year, November, December, they were still offering 0% finance over 3 years. Because my parents, my mum and my stepdad, bought an MG5, the estate. And they said, should we finance it? We were just going to buy it. And I'm like, look, it's 0%. You keep your money in your bank account. And I was chatting to the guys. They're like, yeah, pretty much straight after that. In January this year, they went to 3%, and then 6%, and then 9%. I think it's about 9.9% on car finance now. And you're lucky, probably, if you can get car finance under 10, if you're doing it over. And over here, it's pretty common 2, 3, 4 years. I mean, in the States, people are financing cars for longer than we do.
8 years sometimes. Right? It's ridiculous.
So there is the story with the Cybertruck is what they sell it for, and there is how many people are going to cancel their reservations based. They thought, it's going to start at $40,000 for the single motor version. Not a million years. And that would always be the last one anyway, because Tesla always start with the high ticket items, and so man, that's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough.
Are we talking about $100,000 Cybertruck to start?
Easily.
Okay.
Easily, and why not?
Martin, how long after production starts does Elon tweet out canceling single motor Cybertruck? There was no interest.
Yeah, exactly. Right? They can't deliver on the price they said. It's partly batteries. It's partly working with the materials, like Tom said, and it's partly scaling up the facilities they've got. They've got all the problems in Berlin, where they were going to make batteries there, but they're now stripping out the machines and shipping them to Austin because of the Inflation Reduction Act. So let's. You remember that they've got big issues. They got a capacity of 1 million, maybe 1.1 million in Shanghai, and you can get a car in 1 or 2 weeks now in China. Reducing the prices, bringing back the referral. It's the incentive programs. So they've got other issues to deal with. I wouldn't worry about Cybertruck for now. If you've got a reservation, you want one, you would be worried about it. You're going to be like, I want my truck, but I wouldn't worry about this too much. If it doesn't arrive for another 2-3 years. Not a big deal. Tesla have so much on their plate.
And speaking of pickup trucks, Rivian has postponed the delivery of trucks with the largest battery until 2024. So that's the Max Pack, I believe they call it. So,
Tom, I think they only postponed the tri-motor Max Pack until late 2024, right? The dual motor Max Pack's going to come earlier than that.
Really?
That's what I thought.
Okay, I'm looking at this. I just brought up the story now.
Rivian read the article. I'm not sure. I don't know if who.
The Max Pack increases. It was written up by Andre.
Yeah. I thought they said the dual motor was going to come earlier. The tri-motor Max Pack was the one that was going to be delayed a lot lot
I
you
see.
mean the quad motor version, Tom?
Yeah, the quad motor. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought that was going to come later, but they said that the dual motor would come earlier.
My understanding was 2024 was the earliest we'll see Max Pack. And that's what they're claiming now. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets pushed back more.
I wouldn't be surprised either, Kyle. I think that, they're with these new companies, all of them, it's so hard for them to change production lines and add things. They're finally getting real consistent production with the version that they're doing. And I don't think they want to change anything. Dom, Have you read it? Did you see anything in there, that article?
The reservation is advised to reconfigure his order if taking delivery in 2023 is important, either by opting for the dual motor version or downgrading to a smaller battery pack, the one that currently equips all one RTs on the road.
I'm going to see if I could see what.
There was an interview. There was an interview this week with RJ Scaringe, and they were almost talking about the recent recall as a positive, and I thought it's slightly cheeky. But I see what he was saying. They were like, because of the way that we've built the company, like we discovered the problem at 2:00 on Friday afternoon, and by 6:00 we were telling people to bring your truck in and we'll tighten them up. And they were saying how, we watched Carl, we watched your video, how easy that process was, and they took something that should have been a big negative, and perhaps could have a little bit more humility about it, but was really saying, look, we think we did a great job here. That it's sorted within a few days.
Okay, so I'm wrong. I misread Andre's article. It says the quad rotor Max Pack reservation holder announced he'll have to wait until 2024 to get his truck. The email also said that deliveries of the dual motor R1Ts with the large battery would begin in the summer of 2023. I misread that as saying the dual motors with the Max Pack would be in summer of 2023. You know what I mean? Okay. That's where my mistake was. So, yeah.
Okay, but John Check brings up an important point here. How about the Mad Max Pack?
How big is the Max Pack?
They have not released specs, but it could be around 200 kilowatt hours.
Woo!
And the rumor is maybe 800 volt.
Wow.
Right. That makes sense.
Interesting.
You know, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's got to be close to 200 kilowatt hours. If it's going to be 400 miles, you know, adding almost 100 miles. And the current one's like 135 or 140, the total capacity, right?
Yeah, it's 135 gross and 125 usable.
Yeah.
Well, so Tom, it looks like a pickup truck kind of a day. So you put out a video this week with the GMC Hummer EV versus the Rivian R1T versus the Ford F-150 Lightning. So these are all pickup trucks that we can get now, or if we put our orders in early enough. You have one.
You can't get one now.
You have two, right? You have two of these though. You managed to get two of these on your own, and GMC was nice enough to loan you the Hummer for a little bit. Yeah. So you put up a video featuring all these head-to-head and like a whole article too. The article is great because you take out, you know, if you take out some of the big comparison parts, and you have nice graphics set up there for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So which of these three?
Which of these three?
If you had to choose one.
Well, everybody knows I don't have to choose one already.
Right.
But let me talk a little bit, and I might disappoint you with what I'm going the answer to that question. No. Let me first say that I totally owe this video to Kyle.
Okay.
Because Kyle and I were talking last week about something completely different. And I mentioned to him, I have the Hummer here now because GM got it to me, gave me one again so I could do more charging recordings. If you guys remember, I talked about when I did the charge recordings in Detroit, they were all over the place. And I said, look, you know, I don't want to produce a video, you know, unless I get more experience. So they loaned me another one. And by the way, it still is all over the place. I've now done 5 full DC fast charge recordings, and I can't get a single one to repeat. And that's with 2 different vehicles on 4 different charging stations. So it's you know, the software is not fully baked yet, guys, period. Case closed. You know, right. It has the potential of being an awesome DC fast charging truck, but it is not ready yet. I would imagine it's not going to take that much, you know, it's not going to be too difficult for GM to massage some of the things and make it charge better. But let's put that to the side for a minute. So I have the 3 trucks in the driveway. I'm talking to Kyle, and he's like, dude, you got to make a video. Like, who's had all 3 of these trucks next to each other for a very long period of time? And, you know, Kyle and I do very different type of content. And like, you know, he'll grab a phone and run outside and go, look at this. He goes, just take your phone and walk next to one and point to this one and say, look at this and look at that. I'm like, you know, I just don't do that. Like I shoot a lot of content. I edit it. I put overlays and all this stuff. But he convinced me to go out. So exactly what I did. I just went out in the driveway, set my camera up, stood in front of him, and just talked about the 3 vehicles. And, you know, so that was it was pretty cool that he totally inspired me to do this. I wasn't going to do it. And he was like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, your 3 trucks are sitting in your driveway. Like, you have to make a video. So I said, all right, I'll compare the 3 of them. And I picked like 13 different categories. I originally had 15 different categories, but then I cut out styling and I even cut out infotainment, only because I felt it was so biased on my personal likes that I wanted to try to pick as many categories as I could that weren't just personal preference. You know what I mean? And there's still personal preference in there. You can't help it. When anybody does a review, it's their personal opinion. So you can't remove that. But I tried to pick things that were kind of on the level because, and the funny thing is, and this is the truth, I went into this not knowing who was going to be the winner at all. I said, okay, here's the categories. And as I was talking, I was deciding who was the winner. I was like saying, okay, well, this one has this and this one has this. This is going to be my choice. So I really did this off the cuff, you know, according to, I followed Kyle's, you know, advice. Right. And I was actually surprised at the end. The Lightning won 6 of the categories. The Rivian and the Hummer each won 3. And then there was a push. I didn't declare a winner in the charging because I think the Hummer should be the best charging vehicle, but I can't say that yet until it has consistently good charging. What I will say is on level 2 charging, it's the worst of all these vehicles. And most people are going to charge level 2 most of the time. So, it only has a 48 amp onboard charger. And for a vehicle with a 212 kilowatt hour battery pack, if you were to drain it completely, it takes over 20 hours to charge the Hummer EV at home. So you cannot recharge your vehicle overnight. And I know GM is going to update that at some point down the road, I think for the 2024 model year, and put in an 80 amp onboard charger like the Lightning has. So, I mean, when you're talking about charging at home, think about this. The Lightning can replenish about 40 miles of range for every hour you plug in. The Hummer can hit about 15. That's a big difference.
It is.
So, it's because it's so heavy and because it's inefficient and has such a big battery pack. So yeah, so I did categories like cost, ride comfort, off-road capability, driving range, on the ability to use onboard power, audio system, payload and towing, the glass roofs, the frunk, the bed and the tailgate, the driver assist systems, and charging. And the Lightning won, 6 out of those categories, and the Hummer and the Rivian each won 3. And if I were to weight each category by like first, second, and third, the Rivian would have clearly been in second place, and the Hummer would have finished last. But that's not to say it's not a really cool, awesome vehicle. I wasn't, dumping on the Hummer. It's just I was rating it for somebody who wanted to use it for fun as well as utility. Somebody who buys a Hummer EV might not really plan on using it as a pickup truck to haul stuff around, to power a job site, things like that. So, it all depends on what your priorities are. But for the categories that I chose, the Lightning was the clear winner. And then so some people made comments. Also, Tom, I guess you've made your decision. You're going to keep the Lightning over the Rivian because it really, slapped it around in this head-to-head competition. That's not the case. I haven't decided yet. It just happened to win more categories. Frunk, which we have up there. The frunk on the Hummer and the Lightning, in my opinion, are much more user-friendly than the Rivians because you don't have to lift stuff up over the lid. They're also larger. And that's important for me because I use it I use the frunk so much on the Lightning. It's such an awesome tool to have. And for the Rivian, I don't use it that often. Like I used it once when we went to my in-laws and I put my suitcase up there. But for the Lightning, I feel like I'm putting everything up front there. Right. And that's really cool. The Hummer's infinity roof rocks. It won that category. It has a really good infinity roof. But
have you driven it without the roof?
No, I didn't take the roof off. It's getting a little cool here now. I had to add that in there. But it's getting a little cool here now. I didn't take the roof off. And quite honestly, I was concerned that if this was a very early production model, I think that the VIN was number 22.
Okay.
But it did have the latest software. I was afraid like maybe it wouldn't be able to close right and I'd be driving it, returning it with one of the panels not in. So, but it was, I think it was a good comparison.
Right. So you didn't really necessarily say, I don't know. I want to talk about the stereo sound just for a second. It's kind of like a minor point, but I haven't heard the Rivian stereo or the Ford actually one either, but I've heard the Hummer one. I was pretty impressed by it. I thought it was pretty good. But you think the Rivian's better than that?
So they all have very good sound systems. And in the Lightning, I don't have the top of the line sound system. I have the Lariat trim. It has 8 speakers. The Platinum trim has, I think, 10 or 12. But I've listened to the Platinum. I drove the Platinum, listened. They're all excellent. I think the Hummer might have 12 speakers or 12 or 14. And it also has speakers built into the rear tailgate that flips open. So you have outside sound, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That all said, in my opinion, the Rivian sound system may be the best sound system of any vehicle I've ever driven.
Wow.
It's freaking awesome. It's 18 speakers. The sound is hitting you from every action, and it's clear and crisp. And it has that removable Bluetooth speaker, which is really cool. And that beats the Hummer has exterior speakers. If you're sitting behind the truck, you can listen. Right. But the Rivian, I take it in the garage here.
Okay.
And play my music when I'm doing stuff in the garage and the truck's parked outside. So that's a super feature. So in my opinion, the Rivians, that was one of the categories, honestly, that wasn't even close. That's how good the Rivian sound system is. That Meridian system is awesome.
Oh, Kyle also mentioned once he really thinks the Rivian sound system is like pretty top notch, right?
Yeah, and the R1T, it's pretty incredible. Best sound system in any truck I've driven.
Right. I guess no difference in the R1S, right?
No, there is a difference.
Oh, there is. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting. Amit Shetty mentioned earlier. I'm trying to find his comment here. Oh yeah, what about the software updates across the three cars / company?
So, I mean, I could have had 50 different categories.
Right.
I don't live with the Hummer, so I don't think it would have been appropriate for me to talk about how well or how frequent their software updates are. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I could have covered. I just try to pick 15 categories that I thought were kind of things what people would be interested in and would be fair to the three vehicles.
Right. I haven't noticed actually if the Hummers have been getting much in the way of over-the-air updates. I know that the Bolt EV is OTA up capable, but I don't know if it's ever actually gotten an OTA ever. But maybe one, I don't know. Oh yeah. So, Kyle, anything about this test that you think you disagree with, or?
Well, to be totally transparent, I have the video queued up, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But I just think it's awesome. You have the three trucks. I'm glad you shot a video. I've driven all three of these. I've spent a lot of time with them. I have Hummer EV actually waiting for me back in Colorado right now. So I'll be able to do some videos with that. Similar things to like what Tom did. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to putting them all head to head, doing an off-road challenge, doing all the stuff we like to do. And yeah, my theory is the Rivian R1T is the perfect daily driver. The F-150 Lightning is the perfect blend of work and personal mobility. I really think that's the sweet spot for like a large group of people. For me personally, the Rivian fits what I want better, but Lightning I actually recommend probably more than the R1T. And then the Hummer EV is, like I said, just to get you to CrossFit in Miami in the mornings.
But the Hummer is like it's sold out for like 2 years or something. It's crazy how popular that is. Like
building that many of them.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, but the numbers were pretty good though, right? They
built like none of them.
700 or something,
like less than 1,000 so far.
Yeah,
I mean, not crazy numbers yet, but I mean, it's coming along.
I think it's a couple of thousand because the recall was for 735 for the water ingress in the battery, and I think I read that was around a third of all the vehicles. It must be around 2,000.
I thought it was all the vehicles. Okay,
it might be. I think according to our article on the 31st, it compares to 783 units delivered so far between December 2021 and September 22.
Oof.
Yeah,
but
so less than 1,000.
If I had made a category for attention,
yeah,
the Hummer would win hands down. Even though everywhere I go, people ask me questions about the Rivian, but they kind of walk up and they're like, "Oh, how do you like the Rivian?" With the Hummer, they're like, "Hummer!" Like, holy, it's a different visceral. It's like everybody. You're driving down the road, you just see all the heads go like this. I even had a police officer, and I was stopped at a red light, and he was next to me. He rolls down the window and he goes, "What is that?" And I started telling him everything. And it's funny, the light turns green, but we keep talking, and there's like people behind us beeping, and he's like, "Don't worry about that." I'm like, "I want to know about this truck."
Welcome to New Jersey.
Right.
It was funny. And you know what I did also? I'm terrible. Like, I need to learn more. I need to follow Kyle more with like how he gets content out of little things and gets
he's great at
out of
that.
it. I don't. Like, everything's planned with me. Like, I had all my friends in the Hummer, and I did the Watts to Freedom launches. I must have did 20 of them. I didn't record any of them. And all my friends are just like, "Holy shit," and like after I did all this, I'm like, I could have had like 10 of those clips back to back and put it together and just made Watts to Freedom video, and it would have probably got more views than this comparison video.
You're gonna have to go get some more friends, okay?
Well, the truck's back already. It's long gone.
All right. So, Kyle, I'm looking forward to seeing your off-road adventures with the Hummer, because I think it might be more if the trail is wide enough for it. I think it might be more because you can more capable than the Rivian R1T.
No, we'll
still
see. I don't
wide.
know. It's a lot heavier than R1T,
Right.
which doesn't help it with hill climbs.
Right.
But I think we'll use the onboard air compressor in the R1T to fill up the Hummer's tires when we air them down, because there's no way in the Hummer built in. I love that feature, by the way. And
Right.
yeah, so
And
we
for
have
a number of things, sorry to interrupt you, Kyle, for a number of things, not just airing up and airing down tires. You always need an air compressor, like, for blowing up, like for this year, every year when I open the pool, I blow up a bunch of stuff for like the kids that come over and so forth. I'm like, like dying, like, like there's so many needs for that. It's so cool to have an air compressor always available. That's really cool.
That's true.
Sorry to interrupt you, Kyle.
That's okay.
oh, awesome. All good good work making that video.
Yeah, no, it can. I was glad that I did it once it was finished. I'm like, yeah, that was a good suggestion for Kyle. I got to listen to him more often. He knows this YouTube thing.
So just to go back to the off-road thing, see the Hummer, you can get a mechanical lock on the front axle. It's not virtual like it. The back has a virtual locker, so you actually have the actual mechanical lock on the front wheels. So it should pull you up, whatever. I mean, yeah.
Well, assuming both have traction, we have a slip scenario where we need rear wheel only assistance.
Okay.
So I'm sure it'll do it just fine. It'll be interesting. I mean, we did some, I would say, very light off-roading. It was almost like a driveway on the launch. Like that was the lamest off-road experience I've ever been on. But we have a much harder, legit off-road course I'm really looking forward to actually seeing what the truck will do. And so, yeah, it'll be exciting. I'm driving it for the next couple weeks, and get ready, Colorado. You're not going to have any power because I'm stealing all of it.
Right.
I can't wait to see your range test because, as you guys know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Mine went 343 miles, which, an interesting thing is, and we know it has this giant battery pack and so forth, but the EPA range rating was 329. The EPA range rating for the R1T is 314, and the Lightning in Lariat trim that I have with extended range battery pack is 320. So these are all really close, within 15 miles of each other. But the Hummer crushed the Rivian and the Lightning in my 70 mile an hour highway range test. Super
Right.
interesting to see if Kyle repeats that. And as I said, when I did the range test, I probably could have gone 2 or 3 miles more. But I was out in Detroit, and I had just come off running out with the Bolt, and I'm like, all right, GM vehicles don't tell you state of charge when you get. They just say low. You don't see, and the Hummer has these bars that go down. It's like 100 bars, 10 blocks of 10 little lines, and when you get down to the end, the line starts pulsating, and then the last line goes away. So in my opinion, okay, that's it. I'm at 0, but then you pull over and you turn it off, and it says 1% battery. So I was like, okay, got back in, drove a little bit more, and I was like, I'm not pushing it anymore. Let me go to the charging station. So I think I could have gotten 245 or 345 or 346, but I had a flight in 2 hours, and I'm like, this is it. I'm calling it now. I know Kyle will do a better job of squeezing every kilowatt hour out because he doesn't care if he runs out. So I'm looking to see you maybe get close to 350, Kyle. So let's see how this works out.
Yeah, it just depends on weather. I mean, we just got dumped on with 4 or 5 inches of snow last night, so we have a lot to see. I think Tuesday might be a nice day. Anyway, I'm going to try and cherry pick the nicest day to, as always, is what we do when we have a car. We choose the best conditions when possible, and then run the testing procedure. So we'll see how it goes.
And it's amazing to me that it goes that far with those tires. Those crazy, huge, knobby off-road tires. It would be really cool, Kyle. I don't know how long you have it for. If you could somehow swap those out for like regular road tires, like just all-season tires. It might go 375. So.
Easily, yeah. I mean, the tires are really a huge impact on range. Like even on R1T, we did a video comparing 20 versus 21 versus 22 inch wheels and tires, and the 20s had 15% less range just on a smaller wheel just because of that tire choice.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I have the R1T with the all-terrain tires. And I'm planning on doing a Lightning versus Rivian head-to-head range test. And, I've already range test those vehicles at 70 miles an hour. This isn't going to be a 70 mile an hour constant range test. I'm going to get both vehicles. We're just going to drive, get on the highway and just keep driving. I'm going to head out into Pennsylvania. So my speed's going to vary. So this isn't like a controlled, compare. This is just vehicle versus vehicle, same temperature, same speed, back to back. We'll take turns following each other. And then I'll do charge recording. So it'll be like range and then charging. So I wanted to be fair to the Rivian because it has the off-road tires on my vehicle and the Ford doesn't have regular road tires. So I reached out to Rivian and said, look, do you think you could loan me a set of your the road tires and wheels, and I'll go pick them up at the Brooklyn factory, or maybe put them on for me there. I'll leave my wheels and then I'll come back and swap them, 3 or 4 days later. And like Lucid just did for you, Kyle, they shipped you the wheels for the Lucid Air, and it was kind of like, yeah, we don't do that. So all right, you're going to lose because the Lightning's going to beat the Rivian in a head-to-head range test.
I don't think Rivian cares about the range topic too much.
Well, I'm just saying you want to present it the best light you can. And I was saying, look, I'm just trying to be fair. I'd love to have a head-to-head comparison. And I mean, it's not a dead stop. It's like, well, we'll look into it, but it's really not what we do. And I don't think we have a set of wheels that you can borrow. So we'll see. I was a little surprised that because it's a very simple thing, and I'm sure they have plenty of wheels at their service facility that they could slap on for a 2-day loan, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I suspect the Lightning's going to win this head-to-head range test.
So you haven't seen this video, Martin, I think. Have you watched the whole video?
No.
Okay, but just off of what you've seen so far, which of these three would you choose? So we got Tom's choice already.
The Hummer EV, if I can find it, I saw it on topgear.com earlier. The Hummer EV just arrived in the UK. It's an import. Yes. It's a one-off. It's an import. An importer. Look, that's a very British picture with some grey sky in the background. That's our train. It's our train line running behind the overhead cable. So it's definitely in the country. Let's have a look. It is dealer Sutton, Clive Sutton, an importer. It's on sale for £320,000, which is what, $400,000. So
I honestly thought it would be more over there.
If you have almost $500,000, you can buy an import. It's the first one in the country, so I'd have one of these, please. Stick it on my. But I forget what the specs are. It's almost 5 meters long. It's 2.5 meters wide, odd, isn't it? Or is that the height? It's just ridiculous.
It's a small house. It's the size of a small house.
Yeah. It costs the same as a pretty much 3-bed semi. You could go buy a house instead of a car. So yeah, I'll take this one, please. It's the first one in the country.
Okay,
thank you.
Tom, Kyle, you want to throw down a choice of these three? You own one, so maybe that would be your.
You mean if I had to, for me personally, would I choose?
Just for yourself, yeah.
Oh, Rivian.
Okay.
It's just for me the perfect. I get in that truck and I'm like, this is made for me.
Right.
Perfect.
And Dom, as I said earlier, because the Lightning won this head-to-head points-based comparison, it doesn't mean that I've made my decision that the Lightning is the truck I want to keep. I tell you, going back and forth between the Rivian and the Lightning as a daily driver, I don't know which one I like. They both have such unique characteristics. I'll drive the Rivian for a few days and I'll be like, okay, yeah, I think this is what I want. It's smaller. It's really fun to drive and everything. Then I get into the Lightning and I'll do like a 200 or 300 mile drive on it. I'll go up to Vermont or something. And I'll be like, this thing is just such a great, comfortable, smooth, quiet ride. It has much bigger back seats when I put my parents back there. I love the front when I'm working. I use the power outlets and I'm like, I just go back and forth. I know some people say, oh, I know you made up your mind. I'm telling you guys the truth. I don't know which vehicle I'm going to keep. They're both so cool.
Right. Yeah. I don't even know myself. If I had to choose, I really like the Hummer EV. But it's so ridiculous. I can't see myself actually like owning one, but
That would be last for my pick for sure, though.
I
If
love
you said you
driving
have to
it.
keep one, 100%. I mean, if you said we're going to give you one for a month, which truck do you want? The Hummer might be my first choice. But if we
Right.
said you got to live with one, we're going to give you one truck for 3 years, I'd have to just flip a coin between the Rivian and the Lightning. I couldn't choose right now.
I feel like I'm in a similar boat. Like my gut says Rivian R1T, but I also know that the Ford would be like super great, because it's so capable of just doing all this stuff. You could move your friends, or pile brush or whatever in it. It'll work. It'll do good work, and they really knocked it out of the park with that frunk. They really got that right. The low loading entering and enter,
Yeah.
and just the
And I'm
size of
hooking
the
up
thing.
the intelligent backup power in 3 weeks. I finally got all the approvals from my utility. They came out. They have to run new lines to my house. We got to put up a new transformer because I need to upgrade to a 400 amp service. It's a huge problem. I mean, it's getting ridiculous now, the cost. I mean, it's going to cost me like $15,000 to install this.
Wow.
But it is what it is, and I
you're gonna
want
save
to
$5.
install it, and it's there's some chance that I might be able to get rebates over time from the utility, like they'll you put out all the money for the street upgrade, and then over years they give you some kind of credit on your electric, and we'll see. But it's something I need to talk about, something I need to talk about in my videos, because this is going to be an issue moving forward for a lot of people when they want to upgrade their electric service to have high-speed charging at home, besides intelligent backup power. Just to put in an 80 amp home charging station, a lot of people will need to upgrade their service, and that could lead to needing to upgrade the street service. And it keeps going, and they're going to run a new wire from the corner to your property and everything. So this is all, the utilities are all trying to figure this out now, and how that's going to work. But there's going to be issues moving forward. And the only other thing I want to add on this topic really quickly, the followers, and you guys may have seen that Sandy Monroe video about 2 weeks ago, where he had a couple of electricians come in, and they had on the table a bunch of like connectors that burned out and wires, similar to what Kyle experienced in his facility, where the connections melted inside the box. And it was kind of like, and I love Sandy, and he does great work, but to me this felt like a doom and gloom video, like kind of like people don't understand how dangerous electric vehicle charging is, and they could burn their house down, and and all this stuff. So I'm actually going to do a follow-up video, almost like a response video to that. And I have my channel sponsor over here, Q Merit, is going to be coming to my house. I'm going to set up a table, kind of like what Sandy did, and we're going to have electricians, and we're going to have components, and talk about what's best practice and why this isn't dangerous if it's done right, and if it's done by electricians that specialize in this. Now, the thing is, any qualified licensed electrician can install electric vehicle charging equipment, but I push to have people get a specialist, somebody that really knows this, because there's things, and these are some of the things that Sandy brought up, simple things like how each connection has to be torqued to a certain amount of torque, where regular electricians really they're not used to this. And for appliances in your house, it's just, they'll crank it down and say, okay, that's tight enough. But it's not tight enough, because the electric vehicle charging equipment draws more power than the rest of your house typically. And it does it continuously for many hours every day. So this is different than anything else you have in your house. You should have electricians that understand this, and regularly install this stuff, and also use commercial grade outlets. There's NEMA 1450 outlets that you can buy for $10, and there's other ones that cost $150. Well, are they just overcharging you?
No.
They're better, and there's connections and connectors that are made better, that are made to withstand the expansion and contraction that happens when you're drawing 80 amps for 6 hours straight. So I'm going to do a kind of a deep dive video on this, and talk about why it's important to have this stuff done right. I mean, you just went out and bought or leased an expensive electric vehicle. Don't cheap out on the installation of your thing. Now, I know a lot of people say, I could do this. Look, it's 3 wires, and you're right. It looks really easy. But there's things that a lot of people don't know. I mean, even for instance, like my Tesla wall connector, it's a 48 amp charger, right? So you go online, you say, okay, what wire do I need for 48 amps? Oh, number 6 wire. Okay, so somebody goes out and buys number 6 Romex, and that's against code to use number 6 Romex on a 48 amp continuous draw. You need to use THHN or BX in a metal jacket. So there's things that people don't realize. I know I'm rambling on and on about this, but this is really what I do, guys. And this is what I'm passionate about getting it done right, because I don't want to see people having fires. Like look what happened with Kyle. Luckily at his facility, that he was in a metal box and it was done right. So it burned out, but it didn't get out of the box and burn down the college that he has his office in. So
no, that was at my house. That was in my garage.
Oh, was that your house? Yeah. You got to do this stuff right. Get a professional. I don't care if you use my sponsor. Qmerit knows what they're doing, but you just use somebody who is experienced in electric vehicle charging equipment. It's really
that's sketchy
important
too, because we had a specific EV certified, whatever that means, installer come by who says, hey, I install all the car chargers. I watch your videos. Like, he knew who we were. He was into EVs, and only a year and a half after install, the thing sparked up and exploded.
He could be using, I mean, first of all, things happen, things, even if you do everything right, every now and then there could be a problem. It's like a cars break down every now and then. Was it built not properly? No, things break. The connectors he used, Kyle, came from the factory, not properly manufactured, or as experienced as he was, maybe he didn't crank them down as tight as they needed to be. So, all I'm saying is do the best you can to CYA, hire somebody who knows this stuff inside. Now that's your best option.
So Kyle, that's great, Tom, actually. Thank you for all that, because it's an important subject.
And rant.
No, it's good. So Kyle, you've had the Rivian R1S for a little while, and you made a ton of videos last week. And so I'd like to talk about some of those if we can.
And first of all, only about half the videos, by the way, so plenty more to come.
Oh, awesome! Right. So if you're a Rivian R1S fan or interested in that, stay tuned to out of spec motoring reviews. So let's start with the 70-mile-an-hour range test, highway range test that you did. That's all queued up here on the thing. That's with 135 kilowatt-hour large pack. They're all quad motors. How'd it go?
Did exactly 2.5 miles less than the truck on the same 20-inch all-terrain tires. So one that reassured our test, okay, we have pretty good testing standards, pretty repeatable in our area, in our spot. Different wheel face than R1T that we tested. I think a more efficient wheel. Some people say maybe not. Some people say definitely. I would like to run them back to back to be sure. But no question, no matter how I've run that, and we've run this against Rivian R1T back to back on the same wheels, other things like this, it's a less efficient vehicle than the truck. Now, is it like enough to make any difference? No, we're like picking at hairstrings here. It goes about the same distance as the truck. I think EPA range rating is only 2 miles difference. Again, in our test, about 2 miles difference. It all adds up. But R1S in Rivian's testing shows that it goes 2 miles farther than T. However, it has a worse MPGE. So they're like, it's less efficient, but it goes 2 miles farther. Makes no sense to me. So I don't know how that EPA test worked out. But either way, they go about the same distance on the charge. It did 280 miles plus or minus, something like that. High 280s, I think, close to 290.
Nice. That's great numbers.
So, yeah, I mean, I would say it's acceptable numbers. Wouldn't say it's incredible, because when we look at iX going deep into the 300s, that's a competitor SUV that can go significantly farther. And, with using a smaller battery pack, of course. So there are trade-offs to drive an R1S. It's a much bigger vehicle, 7-passenger, drives, just like the R1T would. There are changes. I actually think the R1T drives better, which is kind of funny. From a performance standpoint, R1S, great. But from a daily driving and comfort standpoint, R1T, 100% all the way.
Sure.
yeah, so range, just about the same as the truck.
Okay, that makes sense. So you also did a cold weather comparison, and this is kind of interesting. So cold weather comparison about 60, 70, and 80 miles an hour. So see what's the temperature was, and this is with the 20-inch wheels, all
It was about
terrains.
freezing.
Sorry,
It was about 32 degrees, somewhere in there. Yeah.
right, 0 Celsius, 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, how did it seem to how did it differ, the different runs?
Oh, I don't remember the exact numbers. And it really was, this is just for people interested in R1S driving at different speeds. So probably not
Right.
worth talking about too much on this show. But yeah, just the faster you go, the worse efficiency you have by quite a bit, as you would expect. Still, my preference is to drive the vehicles as fast as reasonably and safely possible, and then to stop and recharge. The problem with the charging, I didn't make a specific charging video on R1S because it's identical to R1T. There's no difference there. Huge thermal issues when charging Rivians. They just have hot spots in the pack. I highly recommend not preconditioning your Rivian on the way to a charger unless it's absolutely frozen outside. And
Really?
that is because, yep, the battery pack gets hot in certain areas. And my gut feeling that, and no one at Rivian has said, no, you're wrong. But my understanding is their cooling plate obviously can't touch every bit of the battery pack. And so it develops a gradient heating or a hot spot in the pack. And so there's something that gets hot and then it just can't get the coolant to it, can't cool it down. And so you're limited by your weakest link in terms of temperature. And they've been trying to adapt the software and open up the temperature range slowly and try and get this to go. But, you know, when you're at a 500 amp charger taking 220, 221 kilowatts, that's a lot of heat that's being stuffed in because it's a 400 volt system architecture and it can't handle it. And so actually ends up dropping off charging quite quickly. And yeah, so I think that's the biggest issue with the truck, that I'm not totally sold on the 4-motor design. Really needs lockers, in my opinion, some sort of soft locker up front or in the rear would be fine. Yeah, had some struggles off-roading them where you load the whole thing up, you go wide open throttle, I mean, to the floor, and it's just spinning the 2 wheels that are unloaded, and the 2 wheels that have the traction aren't getting enough power to get us over the obstacle. Also, canyon driving, coming out of a corner and going hard throttle on corner exit, it's just spinning front and back inside rear wheels. So you're just leaving a pile of rubber on the inside. And, you know, you're like, hey, this is wasted power we could use on the outside of the car here and, you know, help me rotate it, get it out of the corner. On dirt, it works great. Really fun on dirt. But of course, your friction surface is much lower friction. And yeah, so I like the R1S a lot. I mean, look, that's the negative. The positive is it's the largest interior space in any electric car I've been in. We could put all the dogs in there. You can easily fit 7 people. It's a little tight when you start throwing car seats in and strollers and stuff. We did a whole family review that I think hopefully was pretty helpful to viewers looking at the car. I'm not familiar with car seats and stuff, but my goodness, does a car shrink very quickly when you have kids? So stuff just needs to go everywhere. So that was pretty crazy to see. You know, overall, I think the R1S is it's like the ultimate Colorado SUV. I can't imagine recommending something else for someone who wants a little bit of off-road capable, really, you know, more than acceptable range, great styling, incredible driving, especially up in the canyons for what it is. It's really, really spicy. And the thing that I like about it is it's certainly a nice vehicle, but it doesn't carry the same energy that a Range Rover or a BMW X7 would. It's a little bit less pretentious, I would say.
Okay. So you made
let me cut in quick, Tom. So
sure,
Nebula 1701 said, Tom, anything to say about preconditioning the Hummer? And I'm glad that Kyle brought up the preconditioning with the Rivian. And yeah, I do have something to say about it. Don't precondition. It's unless it's really cold, kind of like what Kyle said about the Rivian. I learned that the first 2 charging sessions I did with the Hummer, I preconditioned. I was so worried because it was like 50 degrees out. So I'm like, geez, battery's nowhere near the temperature it needs for me to pull, peak numbers. And so I preconditioned for like 45 minutes, the last 45, and you could manually turn on preconditioning with the Hummer EV, which I like. I like it to automatically turn on if you're going to a DC fast charging station, which it does, but you can turn it off if it automatically turns on, and you can manually turn it on. Most other EVs that have preconditioning don't give the owner the power to turn it on and turn it off. So GM got that right. But what I will say is when I preconditioned it for a long time, like the last 40 minutes before plugging in, the charging session just didn't work. Every time I plugged in, boom, 300, 350, 320, shuts off charging completely. Doesn't even just derate, just shuts off. Plug it back in, boom, pulls up 1-2 minutes, shuts off. So I'm like, I didn't understand at first what was going on. I thought that could be a possibility, but so then I did some more tests and I realized if I didn't precondition at all, it would hold it for like 10 minutes before it, instead of shutting off, it goes down to like 3 kilowatt and holds that for like 1 or 2 minutes. It's just powering the fans, cooling it off. Nothing's going into the battery at that point. And then it goes up to 88 kilowatt and holds that forever, like to 80%. So what I did was after like 10 minutes, I plugged it back in, and then it went up to like 240 kilowatt and held that for a while. So it's just too much work. Like you can't just plug it in and let it do its thing. You got to stand there and unplug it and plug it back in, to make it work. So it's all software, and I'm sure they'll get the stuff figured out. But if you do own a Hummer, I would recommend you do not precondition. I tried out without preconditioning, and it worked better. It still didn't do what it should do, what I think it should do, but it worked better without preconditioning. I would only precondition, like Kyle said, with the Rivian, when it's really super cold out, when you're not going to get anything because it's been cold soaking and 10 degrees Fahrenheit overnight.
So I was just wondering, did you have a chance to talk with other Hummer owners or see their reports about how their charging experiences are?
I have had some experience, but here's the thing, like take for instance for our 70-mile range test. After I do a 70-mile range test, Kyle and I will do 70-mile-an-hour range tests. We'll get within 10 miles of each other, so we both did it correctly. Yeah. Somebody will email me, say, I have the same car, and at constant 70 miles an hour, I can go 60 miles more than what you guys can. We try to really do things properly. And I'm not saying that the person who said that doesn't believe that, because they might get on a highway and for 10 miles drive 70 miles an hour, and they look at their consumption like, okay, and then they extrapolate it over the battery. Like we do the 0 to 100% or 100% down to 0 at 70. And the same thing happens with charging. People don't stand there like Kyle and I do with cameras studying every second. And so I have had some people say, oh, I haven't experienced this, when I plug in, I come back a half an hour later, I'm at 50%. All I'm saying is, maybe some people are with some vehicles on some charging stations getting better results. I've done quite a bit of recording, and I haven't been able to get any type of consistent results on 2 different vehicles on a number of different charging stations.
Right. All right. So, hey, Kyle, just to jump back. Oh, actually, Tom, someone mentioned Nebula, actually, 1701 was also asking or mentioned that he wants to know how it works on EVgo. You've been using Electrify America stations for this, or both? Yeah, no, here in the New Jersey area, there are no EVgo stations that can deliver more than 200 amps. Right.
None. So I can't use them.
He's theorizing that maybe the pack switching, because it has the Hummer EV has like the 200 kilowatt hour plus pack, but it switches back and forth, I guess. Which one is getting the power or something? I don't really understand.
I'm sure it has something to do with that, but it doesn't work.
Right.
It's not working.
It has to work on every network, and GM has a closer relationship possibly, I think, with EVgo than Electrify America.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
Right. So I don't know.
It maybe actually it's got to work. I don't care where I am, what charging station, what network. It has to work.
Sure,
that manufacturers shouldn't be. That before these vehicles get put in customer hands, they should be testing them out with different temperatures on different networks, and it should just work. Especially a $110,000 vehicle. I
Right. True.
I would not be happy if I bought the Hummer and had this kind of results DC fast charger. Now, granted, I wouldn't be using DC fast chargers often. I'd be charging at home,
Right.
at 14 miles an hour rate. But it should work. And we've seen this time and time again, not just GM. We've seen it on other EVs where they come to market and the things don't work. They don't charge because they haven't properly, worked out the software with every different network. And that's why the Testival is so cool. The Charger Testival that I went to last year, Kyle and I were going to go to this year, but then things came up, we couldn't go, because that's what they do there. All the vehicles show up, all the different equipment is there, and all they're doing is charging and recording the charge recordings. And what I love about it is the different manufacturers are sharing it. Like you see GM going over to the Ford guy and saying, look, what happened here? Did you experience something like this? That's so cool, because the engineers, it's almost like they don't have teams. They're there to solve problems, and they don't care if they get help from Mercedes or Lucid or whatever. I thought that was really cool. That it was kind of like, they were like one team. It wasn't Ford versus Tesla versus this. And we need more of that.
Engineers versus the world. Okay. So this back to Kyle, your R1S video. So if people have dogs or are interested in how, dogs work with R1S, Alyssa actually has a video on out of spec. Is that on reviews, I believe? Out of spec reviews. Going over, they rented up like 4 dogs. That's awesome. This is the best episode ever. I love it. And then Alyssa knows like dogs, and she does rescue work, and so she's very familiar with what owners might want or need in a vehicle for hauling them around, whether you put them in crates or let them roam free or whatever. So it's definitely like a really great video for that. Or if you just like dogs and want to watch a video, it's also great for that. But and you also did a more maybe practical for more of us a video with a family review with the car seats in the stroller, talking about the vents and the interior space and all of that, which is also a great kind of a review for like family oriented, which is an important thing for it, because this is like a 3-row SUV, family SUV, so it's got to be able to work for those in that situation.
Yeah, and the one thing we just kept saying throughout the entire time we had the R1S was we just wish it was built on the R1T's chassis, which is 12 or 14 inches longer. Like, we just wanted the R1S XL. I see no reason for them to shorten the wheelbase on this at all. And I think the general consensus of our audience agreed with us. There's a few guys out there that are like, oh, I don't need to put stuff in the back. I want the most off-road capable. That's fine. That's like 3% of buyers. But I think we all were like, why even adapt a different chassis to R1S from a manufacturability standpoint? Just keep it on R1T, make it long. And R1T is not that big, especially when compared to Lightning and others. Anyway, it's not a huge car. This could have been right up there with Expedition or Tahoe as a real major competitor. But when you start loading family and stuff into it, you're like, oh, and then you have a different rear casting or a different rear subframe than the R1T. So it can't tow as much. It can only tow 7,700 pounds instead of 11,000 pounds. And you're just like, why couldn't you just use everything? Someone said, why didn't you use latch system? I'm pretty sure we did use the latch. That's the ISOFIX. So the car seat right there is into the ISOFIX right there. We didn't drive with the family in the car at all. We just like staged it up and climbed around it and filmed that video. But I just hope it's really helpful to people. It was eye-opening to me as someone who doesn't know what kid life is like. And honestly, as a car reviewer, I should know that. Maybe latch is different than ISOFIX. This shows you how much I know about kid stuff. But don't know too much about it. But this was really an eye-opening review. Kids take up a lot of stuff and space. And man, R1S XL would have been the move.
That's a great suggestion, actually. So, I mean, they might do that. They could easily do that, couldn't they?
I wouldn't say easily. I mean, I thought we also did a full in-depth build quality analysis on out-of-spec detailing, and all of the R1T stuff was pretty solid, and then all of the R1S adapted things weren't. So, like, the headliner just was completely not attached on the passenger side. The whole roof structure didn't fit together. And so
Okay.
it's like, okay, but this is an early production VIN. This is VIN 140, but it's also a press car, which like you would think they would go through and make nice.
Yes.
I don't know. We were a little bit disappointed with the fit and finish, a lot of it disappointed, I should say,
Okay.
compared with R1T, which is truly fantastic. So that's what keeps shocking me. It's like R1T is so good. I love my truck. Like you couldn't pry it from my hands. I'm always going to have one, I'm sure, for at least the foreseeable future. It's a really wonderful vehicle. And then like R1S comes out and it's like, oh, but like all the S stuff doesn't feel as good. Even little things like the onboard air compressor mounted in the rear trunk of the vehicle. When you plug in the air hose to it, it's not on a solid enough mount. So the thing flexes and gives way, and you can't actually hook on the air hose unless you're pretty much feel like you're going to split it down the middle, where the R1T is on a rigid mount. You could slam that thing right in there. So, and the onboard air compressor was extremely loud in the vehicle. It's no longer mounted on isolation mounts or in a chamber of some kind. Every time the suspension moved, and it was at the perfect resonance to vibrate the interior. Again, less refined than R1T. So I like the R1S a lot. I really do. But I also have a whole video coming out on T versus S. My impression really comes down to, if you need to haul people or dogs, you get R1S. If you need to haul stuff, you get R1T. And for me as a daily driver, R1T all the way.
Interesting. That's going to be a good video. I can't wait to see that. I think it'll surprise a lot of people, because like after like Doug DeMuro, who's like famous and has a huge following, loved on the R1S like a lot, like the best vehicle ever.
Well, he's not wrong. I agree. Like when you really look at it from a high level, from the outside in, it's really wonderful. Right. But the problem is the more you start peeling stuff away, you're like, oh, okay, that's it. And that is the thing with Rivians in general. It's not perfect in any category, but the spider web of capabilities is very broad. So it's really quite good off-road, really quite good handling, really quite good as comfort, really quite good software. But it's not perfect in any category, or I would say the leader in any specific category.
Cicero Holmes asks, have they fixed pet comfort mode in the time that you've had it, Kyle?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I'm not sure what the problem was.
It's not a huge deal. We did some tests with pet comfort in the dog video where we thought the fan speed was too low, the third row vents were not on, and the temperature on the inside felt different than what the car was indicating. So we're going to do some more testing with our R1T and put thermometers in the car and like actually see if it is what it says. Because when we leave our dogs in the Tesla in dog mode, which we do all the time, I feel pretty confident, okay, they're going to be safe in there. It's good. When I leave them in the R1T and we get back to the truck and we open it up, we're like, this is a little too warm. So yeah, just a little bit concerned with that.
Well, Kyle, can you set the temperature? Can you just lower it, or is it a set temperature in pet mode that it does?
So the lowest you can go is 68 indicated, but it definitely isn't 68 in the back seat.
Yeah, set up those the thermometers. I think that'd be great. And I think it would also, if it turns out that it's higher, let's say it's 78, you know what I mean? I think that would light a fire in Rivian to get that fixed. Somebody
really needed,
a high profile person like you showing that it's not working correctly. If it's not working correctly, it's different between feeling warmer and proving it's warmer, but that'd be interesting to see for sure.
I will say, like, the Teslas just feel, they also have a window of which it can operate, because you don't want it to get too cold for the dogs either. But we were on a really hot day charging the vehicle in Palm Springs on a road trip, which hasn't gone up yet. And we had Blue and Ellie with us, and Alyssa and I just ran to go get some food. We left it in pet comfort on the lowest, and we got back and they were both just panting in the back seat. We're like, oh, this isn't so good. Good thing we weren't gone longer. So it just needs a little bit of testing.
All right. It was cold or it was hot?
Oh yeah, it was way too warm in the vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, but the nice thing is, if for whatever reason the car bricks or has an issue, it actually sends you a text message that says pet comfort has a problem. And that's really nice touch. Tesla does not do that. Because sometimes you have app notifications off or whatever. So it sends you notifications, text to your phone, emergency, go check on your pets. It's really, really nice.
Kyle, quick question. Do you use TuneIn at all on the Rivian? All right. I
heard
ask because so I've been playing around with the TuneIn, and it doesn't work properly. It constantly jumps from song to mid-song. It just jumps to the next song. And yeah, it's super annoying. It's like it's buffering, like it's falling behind and then jumping into the next song. It happens all the time too, not occasionally. I need to look up online in some of the Rivian forums to see if that's a problem with all the vehicles.
It's a
or if
known
it's just
known
mine.
issue with
Yeah.
tune.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that also on?
Who uses TuneIn?
Oh, I've
Why
been
would
playing
you
around
use
with it.
TuneIn?
It's got some good channels.
Yeah,
All right.
but also I just wanted to wrap up on the R1S. I know I've been a little bit harsh on it, but that's only because I'm coming from the R1T's perspective and doing a little bit of comparison.
Right.
If you don't have an R1T and you're just looking for a 7-seat electric SUV, in my opinion, yes, it still feels a little bit early days. By the time you put a reservation and the truck comes, we've seen with R1T build quality massively improve very quickly. Pretty high confidence level with the vehicle. Just the overall ease of use of it, which is phone key, get in, throw it in reverse, no start button. It's instantly booted. As a daily driver, it's really a fantastic device and couldn't recommend it enough. Actually, I think it's a really good package. Colton, one of the guys who my colleagues ordered one for his wife after spending time with our vehicle. We still are keeping our reservation for one to replace our Audi e-tron in the future. So yeah, it's a really wonderful car.
Miss Go Electric is in the audience today. She's saying, "Tune in user here. Inside EVs needs to get on Tune In." Okay, that's a challenge accepted, I guess.
It should be.
Mark-
That's
Mark,
my bad.
Put Adam Goodale in a 1 hour timeout.
Tom, just plug in your Sony Walkman, right?
I'm still mad they don't have a cassette player in the car.
I know.
8-track. Oh my god! All right, the Tesla has Tune In also, right?
Yeah.
I believe it has 2 streaming options on the Tesla, and I've been using the other one. I tried to tune in for whatever reason it didn't.
No, there's 4. There's Tidal, TuneIn,
Oh, right.
Spotify, and their built-in streaming.
But I don't have accounts for those, so I just
I
use
see.
the.
Also, you can disable them from the menu, which is probably how the car is set. If you go into settings, you can enable them to show up in your browser.
Oh, right. I was wondering that because I saw somebody else's video the other day and they didn't have all that stuff. And was like,
You can
What?
turn it all on or off. Yeah.
Okay, I should do that because won't have this car very much longer. I need to see you very soon. Like,
Bring it on out. Snow's flying. I need to get a lift kit on there. It's time
Right.
for you to get a Bolt. Also,
Yep.
but if you really do need to keep it, seriously, keep it. It's not the end of the world.
I will see you this time next week. I will be right after we finish the podcast. My plan is to leave right after the podcast.
Oh, nice. I also may not be there again. Might be in Norway. So, also,
I almost did it today.
I won't be on the show next week, guys. Sorry.
Ah.
Oh no,
What?
I'll be on the show next week. The following week, I won't be on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
find.
maybe Disco Electric wants to join.
Yeah.
We should have
Yeah,
Lacey on.
she's in the comment section,
Yeah.
so you
Yeah.
know.
Also, just wanted to mention I'm at a BMW event this week and
Yeah.
driving a whole bunch of BMWs, including i7,
Right.
which I actually can't talk about yet, but I can tell you everything else. And honestly, I haven't driven it yet, so I can tell you all the stuff without breaking embargo because I haven't driven. I have no driving impressions. Really cool car. Loving the i7, by the way. Just seems like finally we have a traditional sedan, a German luxury sedan that's electric. It's not weird. It's not this one bow EQS ugly thing. It's just a nice, high quality feeling electric sedan. I've spent a lot of time with iX. It leverages a lot of that technology, really good tech. They've rounded out the charging curves. I'm going to do some charge testing with it today. So it's just like iX, but a little bit better. Amazing sound system, 32 speaker, Bowers & Wilkins, Crystal 4D, insane 2,000 watt sound system. Just absolutely explodes the windows out of the car next to you. It's awesome. And so into this thing, really am. Looks good in person. It's not like an ugly BMW in my opinion, especially the back of it looks great. Grill's quite large, but I think it's less offensive than some of the big ones. I think it wears the new design language way better than, let's say, the XM, which is a steaming hot pile of trash in terms of design. I saw one here too. It just looks awful. I don't know what they were thinking. So if anyone thinks I'm paid to make reviews, there you go. That's a pile of garbage.
When
Yep.
does embargo lift on the i7?
like a couple days from now, and I
Okay.
am going. Of course, I have all the details. I'm going to film the full nerd, 2-hour long, crazy nerd fest video. That's what I'm doing all day right after this podcast. The car's waiting for me outside.
Okay.
But
Well,
let me just tell you a couple stats because I think it's interesting.
okay.
Manual preconditioning, user accessible. It also does automatic preconditioning. So they were like, if you use CarPlay, it doesn't auto precondition, so you have the manual. I'm like, great, because no CarPlay integrates with the onboard map data. 101.7 kilowatt hour usable, about 105 gross, small buffers. So that was interesting to see.
All the new BMWs have small buffers, by the way, but this one's even smaller.
It's a really
it's interesting BMW strategy.
2.5-3% buffer. Thought that was pretty wild. It's now doing traction control in motor instead of in the ESP controller, which is really interesting. So similar, Tesla implemented this strategy with Model 3 a few years ago, where you can really shorten the amount of response time to wheel slip if you just do it on axle inside the motor logic.
Good.
And it's, I haven't experienced it in this yet, but in Tesla, it's magic. It's really, really good tech. So like BMW is getting into stuff. That's how like Model S Plaid is able to accelerate faster than it brakes, because ABS is slow response time in comparison to just keeping the tire right on the slip edge. What else should I tell you about it? It's weird in their messaging because they're like, it's the first electric sedan that's offered with efficient combustion engines, which makes no sense. So I was like, that's dumb. You need to rethink that, because what the heck are you saying there? It's very weird. It's really adapted to be an electric car first. It's built in Dingolfing on the same production line. They can do inline 6, V8, or battery electric. They also have plug-in hybrid, not for the US market. And honestly, I think they should have just gone full electric, in my opinion, at least for markets that are ready for it. Of course, 7 Series is a global vehicle. Certain markets don't have charging infrastructure yet. 7 Series is a stately vehicle. People drive these things in rural areas, heads of states, stuff like that. Yeah, give them the V8. That's fine. But for Europe, for North America, I think should have been battery electric. And what's interesting is it's only battery electric for global launch. So to start, everyone's getting battery electric. Every market will get battery electric. And then the combustion engines will trickle into other markets later on. So they're really trying to do electric first. They're really pushing this thing as, electrics right up front. And just really looking forward to spending time with it, because in my impression, from a desirability standpoint, nicer than Model S, nicer than Lucid Air, nicer than EQS sedan. And so I'm like, okay, this is just like a German luxury sedan. I love 7 Series. And now it's just electrified and seemingly done with good hardware.
Interesting.
Well, one of the things I'd like to say about this, I know we're up against it, is that, I dump on BMW sometimes, and I think we do also in some instances, because they seem to have they jumped out in front early on. They poured so much money into BMW i. It looked like they wanted to be the electric vehicle leaders. And, they came out with some really interesting, innovative products. Now, the i3 wasn't a vehicle that the BMW faithful were going to embrace, because it's such a weird looking little vehicle. But they came out with some really cool tech, they poured tons of money into carbon fiber and lightweighting vehicles, because they knew moving forward down the road, 10, 20 years down the road, they were going to have to be lighter, more efficient vehicles because the batteries are always going to weigh, a good amount, even though they're getting lighter and lighter and more efficient. But then BMW pulled back and stopped. They basically said, okay, for a full life cycle, we're going to pull back on this. We're going to do some plug-in hybrids. We're going to wait till the market. We went out and ahead of the market. But now that that one life cycle that they kind of passed on is over, and they're back, they're like, okay, 2022, 2020, that's when we're going all in on EVs. They're putting out some really good vehicles. So I'd imagine during that, say, laying low period, the engineers kept working, and they were getting ready for this. And I think BMW, while they still, are holding tightly onto combustion and saying we're going to be selling combustion for a long time, and that's company speak, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I think that they have done a fantastic job at really engineering great electric vehicles, even in the cases where they don't have bespoke chassis, where it's not completely ground up and only electric. They're able to put out some really good driving and good feel and great electric vehicles. So I give them some hell every now and then, only because I had been such a big supporter of BMW and I was so enthusiastic about them early on, 10 years ago, 2009, 2010, 2011. Looked like they were going to be the market leader outside of, say, the Teslas of the world. But I have to give them credit because the vehicles they're putting out now are really good electric vehicles. So good on BMW. It appears that Kyle agrees with me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to drive the i440 as well and make a video with that because I've only ever driven the M50. So they have the rear-wheel drive base one, which from a price standpoint is much more attractive. M50 is quite expensive. It's like 70 grand.
So that I'm looking forward next week to the i7 thing, and Martin is too, apparently, because if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, you'll see that he's been specking out one on the BMW website. And
yeah, I've just put the wool inside. It looks nice, right? That light gray merino wool cashmere.
That's the best interior. I posted a picture on Twitter of a 7 Series that was like cut away so you can see kind of how it was constructed. It had this wool interior, and I'm like, oh, that's the spec. It is so nice.
I need to touch that. I need to see what the kind of hand this merino
Super
wool has.
High quality textile, really nice. Just, you know, I haven't driven it, but my impression is huge backseat. I can't fit in the back of an EQS. So like BMW got it. Huge backseat, stellar sound system, massage, ticks all the boxes.
Right, that is pretty nice looking. I like that they don't try to make it like a convertible to 3. Can you put 3 people back there? Does that fold up at all?
So yes, I believe it does fold up, but it's not designed for 3 all the time.
Right. Which it really shouldn't be, because if you have this car, you're not carrying 3 people around in your back seat.
Very rarely do I see anyone with 3 people across. It's really just in a pinch if you're like, oh, I got a buddy who wants to hop in. Nice to have the extra seatbelt.
Right. So anyway, we'll look forward to next week's show and hearing all about driving the BMW i7. I think that we should probably wrap it up here now, though. Unfortunately, we're overtime.
Might be a record for us.
It's getting close. Yeah, it's getting close. I'd forgotten about the i7, or would have brought it up earlier because that you were there at least looking at it. But we'll get in depth next week, and hopefully we can get Jonathan back next week. We'll have to see. We'll put something on the Twitters or something. So that brings us to the end of this show. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EV's forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. Don't forget you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. Follow Tom Logley at Tomolog. That's with 2 M's. Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor is at It's Kyle Connor. And I'm at Dominic_Y. Click subscribe and tap that bell icon for notifications, and we'll see you all again next week. Ciao.